Hello everyone and welcome back to another math video. Today we're going to be looking at exponential growth and decay word problems. So we're going to look at compound interest, half-life, population growth. Just a reminder, this is the normal version of this lesson. If you'd like the speedrun version where we go very quickly, I will link that in the description below. All right, your Ricasso Recap starts now. Here's what you need to know before you start this lesson in 30 seconds or less. You should already know how to round numbers and decimals. Okay, round to the whole number, tenths. You should know how to do that. If you do not know how to do this before starting this lesson, I will link a refresher video in the description below. All right, new lesson starts now. Here we go. Exponential growth and decay problems are awesome. Okay, they show up in a lot of cool places. For example, this is economics. This is the atom bomb. This is sort of geometric abstract art. This is IV drips and injections, and this is, rockets. Okay, exponential growth and decay, very useful in a lot of fields, okay? So let's see how this works. If you want to pause the video, I'll give you a second to read this problem. All right, now that you've read the problem, okay, there are a couple of ways to approach this. The first way, half-life, means that every 1 month, this thing gets cut in half. Okay, so we start with 6,080 grams. Okay, after 1 month, it gets cut in half. So you do 6,080 divided by 2. 6,080 divided by 2 is 3,040. All right, and we continue this process because it wants to know how much will be left after 4 months. So we need to go to 4 months. So now on the second month, we half the number from last month. So we do 3,040 divided by 2, which will give us 1,520. You can do that by hand in your head. I'm using a calculator, okay? And now we could continue that process. 3 months, we do 1,520 divided by 2 is 760. And in the 4th month, 760 divided by 2 is 380, and this is our answer. Okay, so after 4 months, we only have 380 grams. Now the other way to do this same problem, all right, this is the same problem, is this formula. It looks a little complicated, but let's just take a look. So the A at the beginning is the starting amount. Well, how much did we start with? 6,080. Then we do multiplication symbol, parentheses. The next thing in our formula is the B, and that is the growth or decay rate. All right, so how much is this thing growing or decaying? In this case, it's decaying, right? It's getting smaller. So that means that's the half-life. So we need to half, right? That's the decay rate here. It's being halved every month. Close the parentheses. And then the x, the number in the exponent spot, is how many times do we grow or decay? In this case, we're decaying. Well, we decayed 4 times, right? Because it's every month. 1 month for 4 months, so 4 times. All right, and this, if you plug this into a calculator, will give you the same exact answer. Okay, so this is a formula way of doing it to where you don't have to repeat that process of dividing by 2, dividing by 2, dividing by 2. All right, here's our cool clock for today, which means that it is time for you to practice what you just learned. Go ahead and pause the video and try these 2 problems on your own. And when you're ready, you can unpause the video and we'll check your answers. Okay, now that you've had time to work these problems, let's check your solutions. Okay, for the first problem, I'll show both ways of approaching it. You should have gotten 122. Okay, if you did it, sort of just the thinking through process, it happens every 27 days. There's 54 days. So first 27 days, you get half. And then the next 27 days, which would be 54 days total, will leave you with 122. Now, if you did it the formula way, then here is the work, and again, you get the same answer of 122. And for the second problem, here is the work. You should have ended up with 5,600,000. Okay, for this one, if you want to pause the video and read it, I'll give you a second. All right, now that you've read the problem, all right, we're talking about putting money into a savings account or some sort of account, and it wants to know how much you're going to have. So let's talk about this percentage. Okay, this is the tricky part of the problem. you might think that, okay, for the formula, right, my starting amount, 1,000. And then you might think, okay, the growth rate here is 5%. So you put 5 in here, and how many times it grows is 4. All right, and what will mess you up here is this 5. Okay, everything else is fine, because you have to think about it as you start with 100%. That would just be normal. And then this is 5% on top of that. Okay? So what you're really getting is 105%, and you need to convert this to a decimal. You can't put in 105 here. Okay, that's just incorrect. So to convert the percentage to a decimal, you need to divide it by 100, and that will give you 1.05. And the 1.05 is what you put in here. And now, if we type that into a calculator, we get 1215.50625, and then it said round to the nearest cent. All right, so cent would be the 10th position. So our final answer would be $1,215.51. All right, time to practice. Go ahead and pause the video, try these on your own. When you're ready, unpause, and we'll check your answers. Okay, now that you've had time to work on these problems, let's check your solutions. Okay, for the first problem, here is the work. You should have ended up with $9,696.50. Make sure you add the 0 on because we're talking about money. And for the second problem, here is the work. You should have ended up with 988 because it said round to the nearest whole number. All right, last type of problem. If you want to pause, give you a second to read. Okay, now that you've read this problem, so in this case, in the previous problem, we were talking about money, right? And the money was increasing, okay, because we were talking about interest. Here, we're talking about decreasing. Okay, these are decay problems. So instead of doing, in the growth problem, we did 100% plus, whatever the interest rate was. Well, here, if it's decay, we're going to do minus. So we're going to do minus 10% gives us 90%. And then we're going to divide that by 100 so we're going to get 0.90. And now we can plug into our formula. So starting tire pressure here is 1,060 times parentheses. The decay rate here is 0.90. And how many times are we decaying? This is 4 minutes. And if we plug that in the calculator, we get 695.466. And there are no instructions about rounding, so we can just leave it like that. All right, it's time to practice. Go ahead and pause the video and try these two problems on your own. When you're ready, unpause and we'll check your answers. Okay, now that you've had time to work these problems, let's check your solutions. Okay, for the first problem, here is the work. You should have ended up with 59.3. And for the second problem, here is the work. You should have ended up with 35,046.6432. All right, that is it for today. I hope you all have a good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.